Welcome to the latest TezTalks Radio episode. Unfortunately, we were not able to have Carlo Van Driesten on this month as initially planned. There was a bit of a scheduling conflict, so we'll be doing a quick ecosystem update today. And there's been, quite a large amount of news this month lately. And myself and Brian Lee, our other co-host of Tezos Commons, are going to dive into all that. Before we do that, though, Brian, how's everything going?
Speaking of diving, Will, I heard your iPhone took a dive into your pool.
Yes, it did.
So maybe it's not going too well for you, but on my end, I guess it's pretty good. It's been a little rainy the last few days, so a bit depressing, but that's what happens around Tokyo around this time of year, I guess.
Yeah, fall is getting ready to start, I think, next week. But yeah, unfortunately, my phone decided it wanted to take a dive into my pool where we were winterizing it.
How crazy is it that it's already the fall?
Oh, I know. This year's gone by lightning fast. So I guess we can go ahead and get into it. In case you are not aware, we had a TezTalks live just the other day with Luke Youngblood of Blockscale and Kiefer Taylor of Tessellated Geometry. So Luke and Kiefer discussed Harbinger, which is a new in-house Oracle solution for Tezos, which I believe about 4 exchanges, including Coinbase, are already participating in running these price feeds. Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I don't think Coinbase is running it directly. What I got from the announcement was that the community had deployed, a number of the price storage and normalizer contracts on a few exchanges, including Coinbase, Binance, Gemini, and OKX. I think that's how you say it, right? Or is it OKX? I think it's OKX.
I say OKX.
Yeah, I think it's OKX. So what that means is just basically each one of these exchanges actually have their own signed price feeds. So why that's important is that, when you're offering something as important as a price, right? In the context of like DeFi apps and other kind of apps that rely on the price of these assets, it's extremely important to get the right price, because if someone messes around with that and they give you a price that's actually not the right price, maybe it's way higher or way lower, it can get some people in some really deep trouble. If you're trying to trade on leverage and then the price feed comes in and it's wrong, you might get liquidated, and that's always a bad thing. Don't trade with leverage unless you know what you're doing, I guess. But
don't leverage XTZ.
Right. Don't do it. But these exchanges have their signed price feeds, which means they're basically risking their reputation in providing these prices, because the price feed it's accompanied by, I believe, the public key of the exchange. So no, they're signed with the private key, and their public key can be used to make sure it's actually coming from that exchange and from that source. So it's basically like a signature that says this price was provided by Coinbase, and you can do the check yourself if you wanted to. So they actually provide all of these price feeds, but the price feeds existing themselves, they're not exactly decentralized, right? Because it's coming from one source. So the Coinbase price feed, I think, is coming from their Coinbase Pro prices or something like that. And it's just from their platform. So if you were building a DeFi app that only used the Coinbase price, that wouldn't make your app like secure in the sense that if someone was able to manipulate the price on Coinbase, that could have a direct impact on your app. So what solutions like Harbinger do is they actually take these signed price feeds from a bunch of different sources. So in this case, as we said, it was Coinbase, Binance, Gemini, and OKX. And it takes all of those sources and actually generates, kind of an average. I believe it's weighted based on the volume of the exchange. So the higher the exchange trading the volume, the more weight it gets in the context of the final price feed price. So yeah, that's like how it works. And anyone can deploy a contract. In this case, the community has published the contracts for Coinbase Pro, Binance, Gemini, and OKX. And if you wanted to, grab the prices from another exchange like Bitfinex or don't go on BitMEX or some other source, you can do that as well. So the more sources, the better, because if one fails, then you have different sources, or if one gets manipulated or something, then you also have other sources. So just makes DeFi apps and other apps that use this kind of thing, I think it's a lot better.
Yeah, I do. So, obviously just DeFi in general, this is something I see almost every day in the Tezos Telegram channel. So it's been a constant topic of relevance. And, bringing those same fruits that we're witnessing come out of, the Ethereum ecosystem with Uniswap and, all these other projects, and trying to create something similar than Tezos is definitely a move in the right direction. But like Brian said, I think it's kind of a call to action, and definitely important to further decentralize these price feeds. When we look at it, if you just kind of retain a handful of them, they are prone to produce a less than accurate image of, a price, than opposed to having a wide array geographically dispersed and multitude, which in turn can provide that much more accurate of a representation of the, real price, and further decentralize in the process.
Yeah, and I think beyond the, the geo-based kind of thing, like I think it's more important that these price feeds are coming from actors within the sector, that represent kind of different interests. So I think that's actually like very important as well. So it's like, if you're actually trying to be malicious or something, of course you have different intents than a company like Coinbase. They've been around for a while. They really, like, why would they want to do something really bad, just to make themselves look bad? So it's really important to have a lot of people that represent different interests. And the last thing I wanted to mention about Harbinger is that it's actually based on AWS. It uses I think it's called Lambda, which is basically the service that lets you run code without actually having to like deploy all of this hardware and stuff. So in that sense, it's like pretty easy for someone to get up and running. You don't need to know how to like spin up a node and install all of these like packages. You basically just you can use the Lambda and it will scale for you. So if it gets more traffic, it'll scale up by itself. And it also uses the Amazon key management service, which lets you use hardware in order to store your private key in order to sign the price data, which is also important, because if you just leave your key on Dropbox or something, I don't know,
or like what was it with Ian Bellina, Evernote? the app.
Oh God, no. So,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is like a funny story. I was actually helping someone in crypto. I think it's
Oh no, I think I've heard this.
yeah, I think it's someone that you all are probably all know to some extent. You know, kind of a well-known person in crypto. He had actually like sent me a Dropbox to like do some work on his site or something. And within the Dropbox folder there was a bunch of private keys for a number of coins. And you know, I didn't really do anything with them, but I was just like, I believe I told him, and I was like, you probably shouldn't do this. Like, you know, you're in crypto, you're a crypto influencer, and you know, step one in crypto is not to put your keys on the internet. Definitely not Dropbox. You know, if you're going to use something, maybe use like 1Password or something. But why Dropbox? Like it was just like a text file with his private keys on Dropbox.
I don't know. It's kind of funny, especially being a crypto influencer. You know,
Right.
they're all about preaching safety and telling you what to do. That, you know, you see them fall prey.
Yeah.
And not heed what they tell others to do.
Exactly. Well, I guess that's just being
A little ironic.
Yeah, that's very ironic, but I think it's common, you know, for people to give advice that they don't actually follow.
Right.
I see that outside crypto as well, but
I would say there's a bigger majority of people who give advice that they don't follow than there is those who actually give good advice.
I think so. And in many aspects of life, you know, that might not end up in some like harm or some bad thing. Right. But in the case of crypto, you know, if you don't, you know, if you don't keep your keys in a safe place, you know, you're probably going to get wrecked. Like, what if he had shared the Dropbox to someone else, like without someone who didn't have as good ethics as me? You know, they might have just stolen all the crypto, you know, and there's no way you can really prove that, right? You just make like a fake account at Binance or something and swap it over to XMR and then transfer it off and move it to a different exchange and it's off. Don't do that, but but if you were going to, you know, so the end story of this is just it's important for price feeds like this to be able to be signed from hardware. It's more secure that way, and it helps you maintain your reputation, you know, because if someone gets your key and signs a bad price, that affects how people view you. And if you just say, and it ends bad for you in both ways, like if you just say, oh, someone stole my key and signed something, you know, that still looks bad for you. So I really like how this system is designed, and I recommend everyone to check it out. We'll go ahead and share a link to the announcement post.
Yeah, we'll link that below. But one other thing, if you follow through the entire Tez Talk, Luke and Kiefer also brought up the development of a new stablecoin for Tezos. And you know, just in general, I've been seeing it throughout Twitter. A lot of people seem to, I guess, not really understand them or think they're less significant than, you know, what they really are. But especially if we look at something like Libra, there's a ton of criticism towards it. You know, some of it is deserved, I'll say, but I don't think we should really ignore, you know, the rise and kind of increase in demand of stablecoins we've, you know, seen, especially because they essentially represent, you know, these quote unquote digital dollars, you know, if you will. And it's pretty powerful because if you attach something like that to a platform like Facebook or say Instagram, you know, which Facebook now owns, that's something that's going to be very powerful and, you know, will obviously bode well for the entirety of the space.
Yeah, I think stablecoins is definitely like a very important part of the space. And I think USDC recently passed like $2 billion in market cap or something.
Yeah. It's been growing.
Yeah. And that's like really important, I think, because unlike USDT, which kind of has a shady past, and still I really don't know what to think about it. Like some days I think it's legit. Some days, I don't think it's legit.
It's the classic cycle. There's always the, news that comes out every 3 or 4 months about Bitfinex and, Tether, and nothing ever ends up happening.
Right. Yeah. It's always like Bitfinex, and they just like mint these, not fake tokens, but like they're not backed. And this just goes on. And I really don't have an opinion about it.
That's a podcast in itself.
Yeah, right. The USDT podcast. I'm pretty sure you can find some stuff to talk about, but yeah, like unlike USDT, USDC was founded, by companies I would say that seem a bit more legitimate. So, for example, and I don't know what your views on Coinbase are. I don't really think our views on Coinbase really factor into this, but it's indisputable that Coinbase is kind of on the top of the list when it comes to complying with the law, right? As an exchange that's based in the States, number one, that's already quite difficult to achieve. So exchanges like Coinbase, I believe Gemini also supports USDC. So the fact that a more legitimate coin like that has reached 2 billion in market cap, I think it shows, and I think it does show like there's more interest in crypto as a whole, because the way that you onboard cash into crypto sometimes is you onboard it into a coin like USDT or USDC or TUSD or whatever. Like there's so many of them, but
and they basically serve as a fiat on ramp, if you will, to like the other Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc.
Yeah, it's like a native representation of your fiat that you can use to interact within crypto. So the higher that market cap, I think it shows the interest is growing. So so we recently learned there was Luke and Kiefer is working on a stablecoin on Tezos. Do we have any more info on that now, or is this something that we expect in the future?
I believe Luke, apart from the live stream, he made a comment in the TezForce chat. He was saying the original idea for the stablecoin was to create a DAO called Cupcake DAO, another food name. You could bake CUSD, Cupcake USD, in your oven. And in terms of specifics, I think there was a lot of good material in the live stream, but that's about all the info I've seen on that. So.
Cupcake. I like it. I like cupcakes. I don't know if athletic people are going to like it as much, but
it's kind of funny that, but before all these food names became popular, this was his original conception.
Oh, really? So he was going to name it Cupcake.
He came up with this before, sushi and all that stuff.
Maybe he came up with sushi too.
Possibly. I feel like there's a stronger case for the band CTO though.
Right. Yeah, let's save that for another podcast.
Yeah, that can be the USDT and band podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So up next on the list of topics
anyways,
that we have, yeah, right.
Anyways, on that same topic of stablecoins, we've witnessed a lot of growing developments around CBDCs. And before we discuss those developments, what is a CBDC? So a CBDC, or central bank digital currency, they are essentially digital dollars. The concept was kind of inspired and taken from cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. However, as you know, Bitcoin lacks the legal tender status, that is declared by the government in the case of fiat, since Bitcoin is not being issued from the government nor recognized. And I guess in today's day and age, this is a bit of a trend, and I think we're organically moving towards this trend, and it's only kind of the next step in progress towards a fully digitized world. As we kind of begin to see this intersection between the traditional finance world and this digitized world. And, with the rise in developments around these CBDCs, it stands to say that banks and governments are definitely recognizing this. And, no one wants to end up being left behind in something like that, because that's a huge change.
Yeah, so, I feel like the states are going to be left back in this round of things, right? In terms of like blockchain, currency, I haven't heard much coming out from the USA. That like
there was, I believe this was a rumor. I'm not sure of the legitimacy behind it, but there was some mention of there being a digital dollar to be used for tax refunds.
Yeah,
and some press coverage, but that was quickly swept under the rug.
Yeah. Well, like in some ways, I think in some ways, like dollars in the US, a lot of it is already digital, but I think there's a fine line, a bunch of countries have actually like talked about they're exploring blockchain for this particular use case, like China, South Korea, Japan, and
and France, a lot of that is taking place, in Europe. There was some development in the past, I believe, with Tezos Ukraine. I think they are still working towards building out the infrastructure on Tezos for a Ukrainian national CBDC. So I think that was hindered for some time due to underlying, problems politically. There was some unrest going on or something like that. But fast forward to today, we recently found out that Societe Generale has selected Tezos as the blockchain of choice for its CBDC experiments. So it's important to note that on July 20th, 2020, Banque de France, which is the Bank of France, selected Societe Generale Forge as part of its call for applications to experiment the use of central bank digital currencies for interbank settlements. So, anyone who's been following Tezos for some time, I'm sure they've heard of Bank of France, which, if you go back a few years, they began running and testing a Tezos node and expressed interest in using privacy-preserving technology for use at its commercial and primary locations. So I guess the big picture, how is this important to Tezos? Well, the main takeaway, here is this is coverage and this is attention from more than, just your average crypto investor buying sushi tokens on Uniswap. This is kind of recognizing Tezos for its feature-rich technology, and it's kind of reaffirming the fact that Tezos is feature-rich and has lots of benefits on the enterprise and commercial banking scale. And, Societe Generale choosing to select Tezos, I think, shows that. But while it's a little experimental, I don't think that we should underpin it. As we begin to see some more interest taken into Tezos from both the research and practical level, I think we'll begin to see a lot of exciting things start to manifest.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a strong vote of confidence for the project. And I think it also goes to show like how long these things actually take. Like you mentioned, it all started a few years ago when they expressed interest in maintaining a node, right? And I guess the relationships and progress took off from there. And now this is a much more interesting implementation and I guess usage of the project, just like beyond operating a node. They're actually looking to use it for like you said, in order to make a digital currency. So yeah, I think that it really helps from an optics perspective, because like this is not just some small business use case, right? This is the central bank. So,
and actually, to further paint how big Societe Generale is, I believe they issued $112 million in Ethereum bonds a few months ago. So, this is kind of something where they're working alongside of Bank of France, and they're experimenting, these central bank digital currencies on Tezos. So I think that's good news all around. Some people may say, oh, won't affect price today, but I don't think that's the main takeaway that you should take away.
Yeah, like they could have used a number of platforms, right? From Ethereum to,
right.
There's so many. Neo, VeChain.
Neo, I have not heard that in a while.
OG. So yeah, like out of all of the thousands of platforms that you see on CoinMarketCap, it's not a coincidence that they happened to choose this one. I'm sure they did their research, and I think the various aspects of the ecosystem, I guess, were like, I can see why it's attractive for this kind of use case, down to the professionalism of the people who are involved in the community, down to like how the technical code works from like a safety kind of outlook. I guess that's like really attractive for this kind of use case, and also the predictability of upgrades. It's going to take this amount of time. It goes through like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, etc. So all of those processes are needed for these kinds of use cases, because they don't just want to like dive in and then one day all of the people who run nodes decide that they're going to like install this new update and then it just goes live. I feel like that's not like the right platform for this kind of use case. So yeah, I think we're going to see more of this kind of stuff over the coming months and years.
I think we will too. So moving on to our next topic, as we all know, Protocol 07 has been injected and it's currently in the second phase of voting, the exploration voting period. While we're recording today, this, whenever the podcast gets released, it will probably be different. So don't get mad. But there's 7 days left of voting, and I think about 3% needed to reach quorum. So I think this proposal, we were initially supposed to have sapling in 07, but I think this proposal being pushed the way it has, without sapling, to kind of expedite the time for all these developers to begin building primitives and DeFi applications. That kind of comes at a needed time, especially with what we're witnessing currently within Ethereum and, everyone and their brother trying to claim their new Uniswap tokens and dump them. And
exactly.
Buying sushi tokens. The need for these changes to me they're being made to allow for reduce in gas and overall blockchain performance is definitely something that is good, I would say. And Brian, you can share some of your thoughts, but I'd like to mention that we're going to have Gabriel Alfar on next month for TezTalks Radio, where we will go much more deeper into this topic. So if you have any questions for Gabriel, be sure to leave a comment and we will try our best to ask those on the next TezTalks Radio.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's all about staying competitive.
Right.
And there needs to be a balance between like uprooting your current roadmap and trying to like conform with the current trend versus just sticking with your own thing. But I think in this case, I think Ethereum has proven or has showed that DeFi is like actually popular, but it's also kind of hard for me to gauge like how popular is it, because all of this activity that you see, like I think Uniswap had $1 billion in volume or something, like that
something
could be
crazy like that.
Yeah, like that could be caused by actual people or it could be caused by bots, right? So it's really hard actually to really get a good sense of how popular DeFi is. But I think that the idea of trustless swaps is what I'm really getting out of this, because before it was always kind of on my mind, like you can swap these things back and forth, and all these wrapped tokens. It really allows you a lot of flexibility to move between like different pools of liquidity in a sense, and that's something that I really didn't think about before. If you use Ethereum, to swap to wrapped BTC, and then you can claim that on chain on Bitcoin. All of these like interoperable kind of movements were not really like a thing before, and I think like that's probably like the coolest thing that came out of this, just showing that kind of use case is like 100% possible without any kind of KYC is just really interesting. And it really flips the whole idea of how finance works, basically flips it right upside down. So I think it's important to kind of, for lack of a better term, like hop on the train.
Jump the bandwagon.
Jump on the bandwagon. Yes, that's what I was looking for. And I don't think there's any shame in doing so. Like, because DeFi actually seems to be a pretty cool use case. And if it's applied right, and if it's applied in a way that makes it more accessible, like not only to, rich white people, or rich people in general who can actually afford fees and stuff. Because like we said in the last episode, right? We were talking about swaps and stuff like that. And, you were trying, like, I think I was trying to pay, I had to pay like a $20 fee just to make a trade, which
insane.
It's so ironic because so many people on crypto, they're always complaining about like fees on Coinbase. Like, I think just a few days ago, Coinbase actually added fees when you want to withdraw your crypto. Before that, they actually paid the fee, but now
I believe they've always had fees.
Really?
Whenever I try to withdraw something, I don't get the full amount.
Really? Before I always got. Wait, were you on Coinbase or Coinbase Pro?
The Coinbase main application. I wasn't on Pro.
Okay, maybe that's why I think they might charge for. No, actually, for the normal application as well, I was always just charged a fee when I bought, but I feel like when I withdrew, there was no fee. I don't know.
There's definitely a fee when you sell.
No, not when you sell. When you withdraw.
Oh, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. So they made an announcement that said like if you want to withdraw now, so like not just sell. If you want to move it to a wallet that's off of Coinbase, they would actually charge you for the gas fee now, which they didn't do before. And then all of these people in crypto like explode, like, oh, this is terrible, blah blah blah. Well, like, why are you okay with paying $25 for a trade?
I think the bigger deal with what Coinbase did was list Uni when they have ignored to list, so many other projects that have been around longer than, I don't know, a month or two.
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to see why they did that, right? Like they'll kind of skirt around the point and say like, oh, DeFi is this like new trend and blah blah blah. We need to, yeah. And no, like the real thing is because they're backed by people who want more money. They're backed by VCs, I believe, and they might be struggling in terms of cash flow. We've seen the volumes on Coinbase drop a lot over the past year. I think the general sentiment around Coinbase has also gone down in the past year. They've done things to do the opposite of win hearts and minds. They're working with the IRS and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was a big deal.
Like, on some degree, I think that kind of stuff is necessary. I don't pretend that just because crypto exists, the law should be completely like reworked to conform to like our standards or something. Like, I think there needs to be some kind of compromise there. But a lot of people in crypto was like, bam, bam, like they're working with the government. Let's all get off Coinbase. And now there's like one thing after another.
Delete Coinbase.
Yeah, now, right. Delete Coinbase. Like they're like, oh, now they're doing all these fees when you're trying to move your crypto. meanwhile, Binance has done that since the beginning, but
right.
just because Coinbase is doing it now, they're all of a sudden like greedy. So yeah, like I don't know. I think at the scale of Coinbase, if you're actually paying for the withdrawals for each customer, especially in an environment that's as volatile as the one that we see now, where gas fees can jump from $5 to $15 back to $12, in the matter of like half an hour. It's really unpredictable, and I think offloading that risk to the customer actually makes sense from a business perspective. Coinbase is not a charity, right? They're providing you with a service. So that's what's happening. I kind of forgot what we were talking about before we.
I think what we were trying to get to was
congestion
within Ethereum and DeFi within Tezos, and what's going to come out of 007.
Yeah. So end of the story, like Ethereum has proven that there's interest for this kind of thing, and now I think it's up to other projects to kind of improve on the execution, because many products on Ethereum are not usable right now, and the people who are saying it is probably come from a pretty well-off background. Like if you were to reach out to someone in a third world country and say, hey, you can do like trustless swaps,
they won't care.
Well, like even if they did care, they just look at the gas fee and they say, that's more than I make in a week. Like, why would I ever use this? So yeah, I think platforms that are trying to actually work on the gas fee issue, I think that's very exciting.
I guess we can go ahead and talk about our final topic, which was something that TQ Tezos put out just a few days ago. It's around TZ NFT. Brian, would you like to kind of give a breakdown on that news?
NFTs, I think, I'm not sure if it's something we've talked about on this podcast. I kind of
it's something everyone has definitely heard of.
Yeah.
Or you should have heard of if you're in this space.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't, NFT is non-fungible token. Fungible, that's a funny word. Basically, it's the opposite of things that are fungible. And so that would be like cash, right? If you go to the store and try to buy a plate of sushi, you can pay with a $10 bill. It doesn't matter which one you give to the cashier because they're all interchangeable, they are valued the same, and you can pay with whichever bill you want. But a non-fungible token or an asset that's non-fungible is not interchangeable. So this is actually a pretty cool use case of blockchain, because it's basically just using blockchain to create an element that you can assign some data to it that describes that thing. And with NFTs, you can represent things like, if you have an in-game sword or something, like a sword, it's in the game, and you can trade that back and forth with someone else for something else. And since that NFT token represents that specific sword, it's you can't just trade it. It's like unique in that sense, and you can also use it to like represent art and other things like that. So I think it's a really interesting space in blockchain, and mostly because of the world that we're kind of transitioning into. Because I guess in the past, when you thought about collectibles. Like, did you grow up with Pokemon cards and stuff like that?
I was never into Pokemon. I was probably more into Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. So in the context of like Yu-Gi-Oh, right? If you had a common edition of one card versus, you know, ultra
Slifer.
secret rare or whatever, you know, just because those two monsters are the same, you know, in terms of they each have like 1,000 attack points or something, there's different aspects of the secret rare card that make it worth more. So in the past, that's kind of how the idea of collectibles work. You know, there's something special about this particular asset that makes it worth more. You know, you saw that with baseball cards, with all sorts of things, you know, limited edition XYZ, right? And there was something about owning that specific thing and being able to touch it that really added to the experience, I think. But as we transition into a more digital world, I really think that these same kind of collectibles, like the same experience, can kind of be applied in a non-tactile way. So I don't know. I feel like we've already seen that already, like in the Pokemon games. You can go to certain events around the world, and you know you can claim like a special meal or something.
Pokemon Go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's like another kind of thing. You know, that's a kind of it's not VR. I guess it's like AR game.
Yeah. I would say probably some of the more
a primitive AR game. Yeah.
Right. Some of the more popular examples of NFTs we've seen is Decentraland, you know, where you kind of compete to have the most land, you know, the land being an NFT.
Yeah.
And
right.
obviously, you know, there was CryptoKitties, which, you know, kind of crashed Ethereum back in the day.
Right.
But
like with NFTs, there's like this kind of thing with scarcity, right? And you see that in Decentraland, right? Because there's only a certain amount of land, and that's like the scarcity thing is like right now, I think the hardest thing to grasp for people, because when people think about like the cloud and the internet, the term like scarcity doesn't exactly come to mind, because they just think, you know, since it's not made of real things in the real world, you can just make as many as you want, right? So the idea of making something scarce in the digital sense is just something that's going to start, like, I think in the next few years. You know, we kind of saw it with Bitcoin, but it didn't really take off in terms of mainstream. But imagine Pokemon Go, where like the Pokemon were actually scarce. That's not really the case right now. Or if you could travel to some places and you can get like a special edition Pokeball or something that was actually like, there's only 1,000 of them in the world. And those could be represented by some things like NFT tokens. So as we move, so like the point of this is like, as we move to a world where I think in 10 years or in 15 years, we're all going to have these glasses on, and we're going to see all of these things that actually don't exist in the quote unquote real world, right? But Neuralink. We might find that, right. That too, or just, you know, I'm excited for where Facebook is taking Oculus over the coming years. Oh yeah, you know, like we might actually start to perceive, you know, bits of code, like bits of code that represent things that we can see with our glasses, but actually don't exist in the actual real world. We might actually start to think of those things as like scarce, and you know, they actually have a value in terms of what we can trade that for, you know. So I think NFTs is still quite early, but that's kind of the future that I see this going into. And yeah.
Yeah, I think the most highest chance of successful NFT based game that we have currently going on within the Tezos ecosystem is Emergence. I'm sure for many of those listening, you are already aware and familiar with the digital collectible card game, similar, to Magic the Gathering or, Yu-Gi-Oh, like we brought up earlier. That Kathleen Brightman and a couple of others are working, but it's interesting because, when we look at games like Fortnite, a lot of people don't realize that, the skins and stuff of that nature, the costumes.
Do you play Fortnite?
I used to play it very briefly. I was by no means playing it every day.
Yeah. I actually never even opened the app or played it, so I'm actually not too sure about what it is.
But yeah, those skins, costumes, whatever in there, those are essentially the same thing, digital collectibles. So, if something like Emergence really takes off, I think that will really bode well for Tezos. And we also have a new token standard, Fa2. It's a multi-asset interface, and it has support for a wide range of token types, from fungible, non-fungible, semi-fungible, etc.
Yeah, I actually don't know if this is an actual token standard. It's more like an interface that you can use to interact with different token standards. So like why it would be useful is like right now there isn't really a similar, I believe there is not like an equivalent in Ethereum. So you have all of these different Ethereum token standards. I don't remember all of them, like ERC20.
There's ERC 7 like something 07
70
something.
Oh, like ERC 721 I think is non-fungible, and you have like ERC 1155 or something for multi-asset contracts. So when you have like a wallet service that want to implement these different kinds of tokens, you kind of have to do work for each token standard. So the idea of FA2 is just like, why don't we just make an interface that allows companies like exchanges or companies that provide custody, or basically any kind of company or person that wants to interact with different kinds of tokens. Why don't we just have one interface / API that they can use to do things like, transfer the tokens, to check the balance of the tokens, etc. So I think this kind of thing is important, just because it reduces the amount of friction that devs need to go through in order to do basic things with tokens. Like when you're a dev, like what's interesting to you is like the things that you can do with the tokens, right? It's not exactly building out kind of the layer that allows you to do that. That's kind of a different thing altogether. So if there was this multi-asset interface that allowed you to that provided you with a standardized API, you can make all these calls to transfer, to check. I think that's just a really great thing. And I'm always in support of things that make things easier for people to onboard onto your platform. And I think you should be too, because that only makes sense. Why would you want to make things difficult, right?
Yeah, I think most projects, would be interested in that, but some aren't.
Yeah. Well, I think some projects either maybe don't have the brain power behind it or don't
Language
care
barrier,
or
perhaps.
Yeah. Or just they're not even thinking about this. I don't know why, but
right.
When there's so many different standards, and like we're seeing more and more, and actually, I believe that, so like the most popular ones on Ethereum, I think there's only 3. You know, ERC20, 721, and 1155. What was it? Yeah, but maybe down the line, you know, there's going to be more. And if you wanted to integrate each kind of token into your app and you had to do like repetitive work and, you know, maintain all these different links just to interact with each kind of token standard, that's really a lot of extra work. And if there was a platform that had a standardized interface, or you just have to do this once and you can just make calls to any kind of token, then you can even have 1,000 different kinds of tokens, and it would still be relatively simple in terms of, you know, the syntax and the way that you would interact with the chain. So, just very good for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think that pretty much about covers everything we wanted to discuss today. Be sure to drop a comment if you have any questions, and a like if you got something out of today's chat and enjoyed it. We'll link all the discussion topics we talked about below, and be sure to visit tezoscommons.org/TezTalks to keep up to date with all our latest live streams and radio episodes. And also be sure to tune in to our next episode, which will be in early October with Gabriel Alfor. If you don't have anything else to add, Brian, I think we can go ahead and wrap that up.
No, just be sure to subscribe and don't get scammed.